All right, here we go. Everybody, welcome back to Final Resonance TV and episode 2, what I'm calling Van Halen Stories Down the Rabbit Hole. Today, my guest is Tom Bognar, all the way from Los Angeles, California. Tom has an interesting few stories about Eddie Van Halen and his interactions with Eddie Van Halen. Tom got started in the music industry, in the studio industry, and he's going to kind of give us a little background on how he came to know Van Halen, and then how he got into the studio industry, and then how he met Eddie Van Halen. Go ahead, man.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Thank you for being
I
here.
love your show. So let's just cut right to it. So I was born in LA. I can literally I won't even get into what I do now, but I can literally see the hospital I was born at from my office window.
Okay.
And so we moved out to Ventura County when I was like 8 months old, like Newbury Park. And my parents are immigrants from Hungary.
Mm-hmm.
It's a crazy story. So let's see. So my mom was born in 33, my dad in 34. I was born in 74 September.
Okay.
And they were, from the old world sort of. Growing up, I always felt that, but grew up bilingual, knowing Hungarian and stuff. And the point is that there was a lot of music in the family in a certain way. So there was a record player always. Then when I was 6, we got a piano that was an inheritance from my mom's aunt, who was her sponsor when she escaped Hungary from Soviet rule. Okay,
right.
So at 9, took piano lessons. On my dad's side, actually, he had an uncle, his father's brother, who was, I think, first. I may even go on record of saying this, that he's on the internet. First violinist of the Cleveland Philharmonic, 1922, something like that. Wow. And that violin that he came out with and whatnot and played back in Hungary. My wife has a picture of it. Wow. Like 2015. So that's cool. So it's like it's a very proud thing in a sense. And my mom was like, she sings opera. She grew up with all the old Hungarian theatrical operettes and all the Rigolettos and Toscas and all that stuff was always played in the house. And then she would play Tchaikovsky on the piano, and we would religiously go to the Hollywood Bowl at least once a summer for the Tchaikovsky Festival with like USC marching band back there playing and fireworks going off at the end. So come about 82, late 83. There's a family that we knew in Los Angeles that so my dad met this guy somewhere on Western Boulevard, I would say 1969. My dad came out February 67, and it was a guy who Hungarian. It turns out they went to the same sort of dental study school back in Budapest, Hungary.
Wow.
And he left. They kept in touch. My dad, whatever. I'm sorry. It turns out they didn't know they may have known each other from back then, hearing each other's names, but didn't meet. I think that's what it was. So there was a Hungarian restaurant somewhere off Western Boulevard called Paprika. Funny enough. Could have been goulash, but it's not. Right. So that's where they bumped into each other sometime very late 60s. My father was a bachelor up until about, I think it was March 31st to be technical. I'm pretty good with dates. My friends make fun of me for that. But they met at a restaurant called at the time Sarno's on like where Hollywood and I think Sunset meet, and then it's called what, Hillhurst or North Vermont or something like that. And now it's called Rock Bar or something like that. And it's one of those places where like Jeff Goldblum goes on Wednesdays and you buy tickets and they still sort of sing while you order. It was some sort of Italian kind of thing back in the Sarno's. So 6 weeks later they got married. Cinco de Mayo 72. It's all on my Facebook, but I'll show you my personal Facebook. But just to let people know that we haven't really talked that much before this interview started. We just texted on Instagram a little bit, and that was great, But whatever research you did is great. I'm glad you're having me. But they finally had me in 74. Piano lessons, drums, 11 years old. We moved to Moore Park in 85. that year I turned September, I turned 11. I loved Tommy Lee, big Motley Crue. That generation is, so one of my best friends, what are you, like 68?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1968. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of my
55.
best friends who we'll get to,
Yeah.
he's 68. We go to a lot of concerts together. We grew up in a band together. He was first time I ever played live. He was the bass player, let's say. So, and that was when I was 15. So point is, eventually we land on I want to play guitar now. I'm about 7th grade starting the drums thing. It was a cheap drum set. And of course, Van Halen's in there. And of course, what I can say is when I got latched onto Van Halen, let's get to the point, enough about me, is around, what I was going to finish is with this Hungarian guy. I'm so sorry. So my dad, they get married. These guys throw the, reception for them. They have a kid. We grew up together with that kid. That kid happens to be a guy named Nimrod Antal, who was the director of the Metallica Through the Never documentary.
Okay, yeah.
He's a big Hollywood director. So I grew up with that guy. And at his house, they lived down in LA. So his dad was a dentist, right? A doctor. My dad was a dental technician. So he did like dentures and all that stuff and had laboratories out here in Thousand Oaks growing up, working at Oxnard for a while. So we would go down to their house, and their parents were super cool, and they had MTV.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
And so, because for a while there, not everybody had that.
No. And so we lived out in like Thousand Oaks in 82, 83 September's when we moved to Camarillo. Still same deal. It's Ventura County. We eventually get it. I remember seeing like, Pat Benatar, that stuff back then at his house vividly. Here Comes the Rain Again, Eurythmics, all just loving music. And then I'll tell you what, I know you've mentioned the Oakland videos, right. Unchained. So This Is Love, amazing stuff. I can't remember if that came out, if I saw that before Jump, but when Jump came out, and having been raised very classically, opera and all that stuff, ripping keyboard solo intro, ripping guitar solo, and other than ripping keyboard solo, it's just wow, so I could hear that this guy was pretty talented, right? And there's something about it. So, but the thing was at that time, here's the thing, I'm talking like late 83, early 84, this came out, and we had a neighbor 4 doors down in Camarillo where we lived at this point now, who were from like Long Island, I believe, and they were really cool. So my parents were older, like I said, old school generation. They didn't know any of that, right? They were totally, so these folks had like, Innocent Man, Billy Joel, Hall & Oates, and then they got, the heaviest was definitely the 1984 album, and they put that on with a wow and all that. And I was like, whoa, okay. And the video was, world premiere. Remember MTV, the world premiere video?
Of course.
Okay, who can forget?
So, I mean, who can forget? We don't forget, but
right. No, I mean,
everybody else might.
So, 85, still loving it. Bummed though that David Lee Roth and the whole thing split.
Sure.
But by summer 86, see, I'm still 11, not even 12 fully. And so I had to be, my mom, only child, mom, dad at work. These guys who I played soccer with, their family, they'll watch you. The wife's home all the time, it happened for a couple summers. And I remember that 86. Wow, this guy, Steve Vai, he's pretty damn good too, right? So it was like I could see you see the interviews, and it's all exciting. And then Live Without a Net. I remember seeing that video, right? We had a video shop up the street from Moorpark where I lived. That was like a strip plaza, had a convenience store where we'd go play video games and buy chips and Coke, like goblins or ghouls or some weird video game. And then there was the video store where we get movies from. Certain people had VHSs then, certain people did not. I finally got one in like February 88, my family did.
Right.
Some people had some before, and like, so finally one day after that, rented, they had Live Without a Net for the longest time. And what I was going to get to is like at some point, the whole Metallica thing was really kicking ass. We all know the Aussie tour and what people are saying in the lot and stuff. We see that video. There was a divide where I lived at that was in the metal world. It was definitely the thrash, and then the glam. What was Van Halen? Obviously, in a whole nother level because of Eddie and the brothers. If amazing what those two guys can do, right? So
yeah, it's killer.
and um, so some stuff you wouldn't admit, like in my band that I do right now, 80s Top, we do like everything is heavy from 80s Top is a nick off the ZZ Top.
Sure.
And so that's why we're a trio playing on backing tracks, Eliminator style. But we play ZZ Top, we play working for the weekend and new wave stuff.
Okay.
So Faith, we played the other night when we played on Sunday by George Michael as a trio, no backing track. So it's fun, to get down. And that was the rawness I heard from Van Halen, along with the keyboards. But I gotta admit, some of the 86 and 88 stuff, you went to. So let's, in the meantime, before high school started in 88, I really didn't even know what I was going to do guitar wise. And one day, here's where the story starts. I live in Simi Valley technically now, Jeff, right? Which is just over the county from LA, just north. So there used to be a Sears. So imagine back in the day, you used to mail get the J.C. Penney or Sears catalog. I don't know if you're right, and you thumb through and have everything from lingerie to electric guitars at times, right? So
good stuff all around.
Yeah. So there was a Sears outlet store a few blocks from here.
Yeah.
And during the 94 quake, it got hit so hard that a year later they had the level, it was deemed not safe to, the owner didn't have money to retrofit it, right?
Right.
So I believe it was like May of 1987. My mom was like, "Oh, let's go." She loved getting out of the house, putting me in the car, and let's just go look at just flip blouses. Let's go somewhere, get out of the house.
Right.
And everything was fine with my mom and dad. It was nice. Just she was a very active mind. So we got out and we go to the store, and as you walk past it had like, as you walked in, this the back of a sort of like casing where you walked around. Now you saw it was kind of like a jewelry case thing and a shelf thing. That was the actual back piece. When we walked in the store through the turnstile thing, I walked in and I saw this Eddie Van Halen copy cheapo guitar for like $150 probably. Well, no, I'm sorry. At the store, I saw it for $42, but in the catalog, I think I sent you that picture. I think it was like 100 something, right?
Yeah, right.
And there was that one, and if you've seen that picture, the sort of tan bass guitar just to the right of it, I believe that was there too for $39, right? So I'll send you some pictures of my buddy. We're recording right now, but we played Gazzari's, and we grew up together. Once I moved to Moore Park, I told him, I said, "Hey, we were talking about getting some gear. We're literally in 7th grade, right? We're getting that hankering."
Sure.
And so I bought the guitar. We went a week later, right? Now, but here's the one thing that's weird. I think it was when I first saw the guitar. Here's the crazy thing. There was a kid there that was a grade below me with his sister and his mom, and his name is Danny Margolis. And Danny, eventually, we grew up in the same area of Moore Park, rode the same bus for years. He was, by the end of high school, he was working for some catering company. Okay. It's the fun thing. And so I think a week later, my mom and I went back, and then we bought the guitar, and my buddy had bought the bass a week after that was still there. And so it all worked out, right? I didn't know how to tune the thing for like a year and a half. I knew the rhythm. I would literally hold 3 fingers on the thickest strings and go blah, 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 blah. So later that summer of 87, I got an amp, and then 7th grade went through 8th grade. That was that year. I didn't know how to tune it. I just kind of messed around. We messed around with the bass.
Yeah.
So 9th grade started, and I think it was like the first semester I had an elective, which was electronics class. And so the teacher says, here's the catalog, order what you want. We're going to build a kit. I went for the fuzz pedal naturally, right? I need something like that. I knew it, So
Right,
there was
right.
a kid 2 years older than me in the class named Mitch. And Mitch, he says, "What are you making?" I said, I told him. He said, "You got a guitar?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got an amp?" Yeah, they're cheap, whatever. He goes, "Where do you live?" I tell him. He goes, "Oh, this guy named James?" Yeah. I think he was a senior or even just graduated the year before. So I don't remember. But I knew James from the time I moved to that end of Moore Park. He had a sister who was only a year younger than me or older than me. And he was in the area. In fact, he was the first one who showed me like Master of Puppets album and Justice for All. And Justice for All was eventually my first concert tour that I went to. But point is, uh, so they come over after school one day. He tunes up the guitar. He says, "See this Metallica song? This is an A. Here, bing, bing, bing." Oh, okay. And it was done. I heard it because I played piano, a tuned instrument for lessons for a year,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So we started a band by the end of high school. We play after I finished high school, but now play Gazaris and singer quits, and we were about to play the whiskey. It didn't work out, whatever, right? So I'm kind of floundering in life, still playing in bands here and there. Uh, some Van Halen, like I'll Wait, Dance the Night Away, Jump,
Mm-hmm.
learning the licks and, enjoying all sorts of music, going to Grateful Dead concerts,
Right, right.
enjoying a lot of music, a lot of things come around in LA.
Sure.
So I go through about 4 or 5 years of the local city college. I went major, taking, harmony theory, Bach quartet, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And just don't know what I want to do. I don't know, so all right, I'm not going to make it as an artist anymore. We had a pact that if we don't get signed by the time we're 19 or 20 or 18, even, I think my buddy would say, just give it up. All right. So I wasn't the woo woo kind of guy. So yeah, production. What's going on? I always enjoyed listening, at night. I was an only kid, didn't have a brother or sister to talk to going to sleep. I just listened to music. So
Mm-hmm.
got into recording school in North Hollywood in September 97, was going to do a 4 month fast track. Some days there was even lecture on Sundays, if it's like 7 days or lab or whatever, So
Which school was this at?
it was called Los Angeles Recording Workshop at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's now called Los Angeles Recording School.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they've integrated with MI.
Yeah, is it on Hollywood or Sunset?
Yeah, they moved. Yeah, they moved. Yeah, it's on Sunset, I believe. They moved from the corner of it was on Lankershim, on the southeast corner of Lankershim and Weddington, and just east of that on the same side of the street is NRG Recording Studios.
Right.
And so we'll get to that, but so I go through school. There's a couple guys there from North Carolina who deserve some mention, named Carlton and Matt. And Carlton's the guy I mentioned who earlier, like he's played in Berlin, Orgy. I think he played when we worked at NRG. We even met what's his name, Elijah Blue Allman, Greg Allman and Cher's son. He came in to record.
Mm-hmm.
Like so they eventually years later connected, and it's a good match. He's a great guitar player.
Right.
Carlton Bost. His name is Carlton Bost, Bost. So these two guys were in recording school. I remembered them, and okay, and we had this in the past or later in the future. I remember them, of course, what I'm saying, but we had this one guy come in as some engineer. I couldn't remember his name for my life, but he told us the etiquette of recording studios and being around these people and stuff, these big stars and celebrity types and musicians. And
Sure.
so the point is that, when you're there, you obviously no autographs, no pictures, no, how you doing? What do you need? That's about it.
Right.
So, finish school. And the one thing that the guy had told me after school was like, or that I remember going, into the future after school was that the record plant was a tough one for runners. 95%, 99% of you guys are going to all be runners, not assistant engineers right away.
Sure.
You go, for those people who know, you go assistant engineer, and you go engineer, freelance, producer, whatever.
Tell people what
So,
runners are, what a runner is, just so that folks that don't.
so great question. So a runner is like a gaffer gopher, as Alex Van Halen would say
Right.
in some of those interviews. Uh, I have so many stories of things,
As a runner.
I'm getting for names that I would drop and you'd be like, wow, it's just the weirdest, So sure, as a runner, and you go get their cheeseburgers or their shakes or their coffee from over the hill into the valley because it's a specific one from Hollywood that they want in Studio City, and you know,
Right.
there's
Well, that's
there's
the
no
funny.
so
There are a lot of funny stories around. Runners are not. A lot of people don't know this, but a lot of runners are not only in the studio business, but in the live business as well, in the live arenas where they have local crew or runners that take the band wherever they want to go locally. When they have a little time in between. Yeah. So you literally run them around.
oh, I learned every nook and cranny back alley in Hollywood to get Puff Daddy his food
Right.
piping
Right.
hot. And in fact, there was one time where when I worked at NRG, I'll just tell you this. Glenn Danzig was in, and I think he was doing that 666 album that came out in the very late 90s. But he said, "Go to Joe Peeps." My friends love this story. Go to Joe Peeps Pizza. All right, it's on I think Magnolia and like just east of Coldwater Canyon, and I hauled but so quick back to the studio that by the time he opens it in the lounge, he goes, "I'm walking with thanks, man." He opens it. Hold on, come here. What's going on, Glenn? Here's the pie and here's the cheese. Like the cheese slid half a
Oh,
foot off the pie, and he was obviously
not happy.
a little pissed off. But sometimes there's the downside to
Being a
but
runner.
you're making minimum wage, you're getting paid whatever it was then, 47 cents a mile. And of course, gas was only like a couple bucks and a half at the most. So this is like 1998, 99, 2000. Eventually I became a assistant engineer. But so yeah, I got hired at the record plant after after recording school. I basically tried to get into post production, starting the new year, January, but no one was hiring. You learn eventually that they're in mid season and they have their budgets all worked out, enough workers and whatever. So I started giving out resumes, and immediately the first one that bit was the record plant, and it's like, oh man, okay, so let's go. I went on a Monday for an interview, April 13th, 98. 2 day they hired me, said start Wednesday. I started on tax day, which was just over 25 years ago. Crazy. And it was rough. It was rough. You learn a lot being thrown into the kind of small town down to Hollywood, and hey babe, there's a lot of that, and it is what it is, or was. I don't know how it is now, but a couple months into it, I was like, so I was thinking about changing studios because Carlton worked at record plant after recording school.
Mm-hmm.
And so after about a week, he was telling me, yeah, Matt, my roommate from North Carolina, who was in recording school with us, I think he interned at NRG and then got the job there. Anyway, some more rock music there. Okay. So I kept that in my mind. He split and he got a job there as a runner. So I'm about to quit. Not having a good time there. But great art. You're meeting fantastic artists. My first person I met was Don Henley. Got him water. Just watched them writing lyrics on a pad in the lounge. Just like, wow.
Right.
Uh, so just from zero to here we are now. Don't say stupid things and don't be cool. And of course everything was cool. They were just people at the end of the day. Very nice. Came and hang out front lounge, bumming smokes off the reception guy at the front, the concierge. Um, so a lot of fun, a lot of late nights as a runner. So one shift they had that made it tough at the record plant was the I guess the overnight shift is what they called it. Now I can't remember if it was for 1 5 day week or if it was for and then have the weekend off and you do it for 2 weeks. I can't remember that part. It might have been for 2 weeks. So I knew it was coming in a few weeks and I was about to quit. And one day I go into work and they said, all right, get ready. In 2 weeks is going to be the 30th anniversary party on July something of 98. I can't remember. I think it was like a midweek, like a Wednesday, July 7th, 8th, something like that. But you have some high profile people here, all this stuff. Okay, so I think I had the day off before. All right, so wonder who's going to be there. Get ready, get a haircut, look nice. I remember like getting set up for it as like, wow, there's going to be some history there or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I show up for work, and of the three studios I eventually worked at, recording studios, this was the only one that made you wear like a uniform, and it was like a gray collared, I guess polo shirt is what you call it, a couple buttons, and then the record plant insignia in black there. And only the runners wore those, not even the concierge people. So I show up for work, and as you walk up to the record plant, it's got on the window kind of thing on the right side, that's the lobby. Beyond that, and the left side is the door. And I open the door, I go inside, I look up, there's Eddie Van Halen standing right there. Wearing in July for some reason a black sort of trench coat with the sleeves rolled up, and black slacks, not decent shoes, like some button shirt. Like he dressed up for the occasion. He looked great. And Jeff, I go in, kid you not, and I'm coming in my gray shirt, and he's like, "Oh yes, to someone." He looks at me, and I look at him, and he sees me like, "Oh, fuck," like this is Eddie Van Halen. I go, Eddie Van Halen, just like a little kid in a candy store, and he just goes, "How you doing, runner?" Sticks his hand out, and immediately I see him go for it. I go for it. He's got this, that's the strong hand. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Great grip. I couldn't believe I was on the ground, man. I said, I go, how you doing today, sir? And he goes, what's your name? I said, Tom, my name's Tom. It's a pleasure to meet you. I said, let me know if you need anything. Here to help you out today. Right? Like, him and everyone else, like Ron Nevison was there and whoever, so hey man, you working next week? I said, yeah, I'm actually doing the night shift. What's that? Midnight to 8. I got to clean the whole studio. You have to go at midnight to 8 for 2 weeks, I believe it was, Monday through Friday. Wait for the clients to, end 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Right.
Clean the whole studio, the offices, every studio, everything. I mean, that project, Jeff, was just like, there was one time a client had some women of the night in there, let's say, and they left some things, under the couch, and I go home, by 9, I'm asleep, a.m. Half an hour later, get a call from the studio that you didn't clean this or that up. I mean, stuff like that. It's like, I'm sorry, man, that's just too much,
Right.
But other than that, a great experience, of course, really. So anyway, so here's the kicker of the small town thing. So I tell him, yeah, night shift next week. It's like, great, we're going to be here. Really? I knew they had a studio up the hill, like we're over the hills. What the heck, I think he might have said remixing a song or something like that. I think I asked him.
Mm-hmm.
That's not 1,000%, but I said, all right, cool. Like you're my man. It's absolutely just that grin on his face. I was just in heaven. I'm still just telling the story.
Yeah,
Come
man.
on,
Yeah,
like for some small fry like me, then just getting that love was just
yeah.
unfucking real, man.
He had like a a way of disarming people. Did you feel that? You know what I mean? Like he knows you're a big fan, but he's gonna make you feel like
Yeah,
you're an equal.
he cuts the ice. He cuts the ice with
Yeah.
his blade, just like that, just like the bullshit. Yeah, he's straight up, Jeff. Yeah,
He had that.
it was amazing. It was amazing. So here's the part. So let me know what you need. All right. So I'm walking down the hallway now. All right. I'm going to the back, and just to describe just the record plant, it's got a studio on the left, which is called Studio 4, a decently nice, I think the biggest sized live room there.
Mhm.
Behind that's the toilets, and then like the behind that is like the jacuzzi lounge, and all along the right side wall is Studio 1, 2, 3 as you go back. So I'm going back into the beyond the whole lounge, the jacuzzi kind of spa thing. I think lounge they had like was to the left, swinging to the left was like a pool table and a kitchen. So I go back there and I see these tables set up. I was like, wow, look at this huge thing of shrimp. And I'm like eating some shrimp. No one's watching. And out of the corner comes the same guy, Danny Margolis, in 1998, my neighbor who grew up in the area, who was there at the Sears outlet store when I saw the Van Halen guitar for the first time.
Wow.
We're still working for that catering company from Moore Park. He eventually bought it, and I'm going to plug him right now. He's got a great restaurant on High Street called M on High Street. My wife and I ate there about a month ago. Fantastic. This
Wow.
restaurant was on one of the first seasons, I think the seventh episode of Kitchen Nightmares in like 2007 or whatever it was with Gordon Ramsay, right?
Right.
And it
Wow.
was some French restaurant then at the point, but he took it over now a couple of years ago. And so there he is working this event, man. And guess what? I didn't think about this till years later, Jeff. That what a weird thing that when I bought an Eddie Van Halen guitar, there he is at the same place where I meet Eddie Van Halen, like,
Right.
11 years later.
At the same time.
How, how crazy? Yeah, he's right there. I said, I told him, dude, you see Eddie Van Halen's here? I was, I was like, man, anyone else didn't freaking. I don't remember who else was there besides Ron Nevison and him. A bunch. I'll have to think about it, but like, a couple names like no one like that. Anyway, come on, and he was just stuck his hand out first.
Right.
The most amazing moment of my life, man. So,
Yeah, Ron Nevison, he's a legend, and I, of course, know
oh yeah,
his career.
Jesus Christ,
Yeah, so that's
for
cool.
sure.
That it's cool that your buddy was there. It's just such a
So
so freaky.
yeah, so that day comes and goes, and they literally come in like the next week, and I'm starting this night shift, right? So there he is for like 4 days straight, man, remixing. I guess it was Fire in the Hole. It was, mid-July 98 at the record plant. And it was just him basically and some engineer named Robs. And I've seen him on the Wikipedia page, but he's got no link. Robbes. Even on the Wikipedia page, it's just Art Robs, or whatever. And I remember he was, from what I remember, a Dutch guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And didn't hear about him before or after. So it's the
Hmm.
most I can say about it. But
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't have the right sort of flying faders on his board at 5150, or God knows why he chose. Or they rented it out at the time. Who knows? I don't know.
So what was
Or
the
there's some
board?
renovation going on. Who knows?
Was it SSL in there? What was he using?
It was oh man, Studio 3.
Because he had an SSL.
There, I believe they were all SSLs. You know,
Yeah.
definitely not the digital one at this point. Definitely G plus.
Mhm. I think that's right.
Um,
I think he did have a G plus up at the studio, but I don't know when he got it. It was
right, right.
it was after the what was it, the one he had for so long? It was
Like a Trident or something. Or?
no, he didn't have a Trident. He had a not an MCI. I'm thinking of what it is. Somebody will say in the comments because I forgot.
Right.
But yeah, he had an older analog board that Don Landy put in there, and I think
Not an Eve.
no, it was a UA.
Oh, okay. Huh.
It was an old one.
Wow.
One that Don refurbished and then rewired, and then he used it for a number of years. And then I know that he had a lot of API outboard that you'd see, channel strips and EQs and whatever. So I don't know how much they, later with the SSL, whether he was using the APIs as front end and just using the board to mix, or probably a mix about. But yeah, I think he was a G plus. But now Wolfgang's gotten rid of it because you're about to tell me about Elvis Basquiat too, and
So yeah.
so this gets Elvis's. I guess when he was doing all the Tremonti and all, he's got a Neve, and Wolfgang replaced the SSL with a Neve.
I mean, yeah, that's so basically I get a job at NRG, and there's Carlton again, and his buddy, from school, and back home, Matt is working there too. So we're all runners now. And Jay Baumgartner is the owner, and he's did some good mixing. He's obviously well known in the
Great rock,
metal and all that.
great rock guy.
Yeah. So I get a job there, and literally like first day of working there, there's Michael. Michael Elvis Basquet. How you doing, man? Just super cool guy, sweet as can be. You know, I know his studio's like in Orlando, but I have a feeling that he was from South Carolina, or I don't know why I'm thinking that. Is that
I'll
true?
say North Carolina maybe, but because I think he had a room. I think he. I mean, I remember Alter Bridge recording on the, I think North Carolina coast at one time.
Okay.
Maybe that was it, but I can't. It didn't totally come back to me.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, like
sure enough, guy looks like Elvis. He's got that just cool, sweet thing going on. And then, the best thing about Elvis was his car, man. This stretch Buick with suicide doors, black, like just pimp, man. Like, just fuck yeah, dude, rock and roll, man. Like, so he would have, and Elvis at times, Jay would let him, bring in some like acts, some friends to record, and, I'd hang out in there and, you know, get this, get that, or plug this, plug that, Same thing with like Jay Gordon of Orgy. Hey, Jay Baumgar and say, hey, help my friends out. Just. So I get some assisting in there, and
right.
so obviously we know Elvis Basket went on to, you know, even then, um, assisting
Alter,
on he was like their number one guy, obviously, and
yeah.
he's like 23, 24 years old, 25 at the most. Fantastic, so um, another
Jay,
guy, not another guy connected to Van Halen worked there as well, and I'll plug him. Great guy. He was from School of Berkeley, as far as I remember. Grew up in Florida. Went to School of Berkeley, sound engineering and possibly music. And Alex Gibson worked at David Lee Roth at
Henson,
A&R, the old A&M Studios, which is now
Henson.
the Henson Studios in like the mid 2000s. Am I something like that?
Yeah,
Mid
that's
to
probably
late
right.
2000s,
He's
right?
Dave's worked over there, I guess, almost all the time when he works at Henson.
Yeah. So Alex, we got on, and he came up in like a few weeks after I did the NRG. So we had this group of guys there at the time. We were and some of the older guys, John Ewing Jr. worked on the Korn album. A lot of these guys were then some of these guys are starting to get out, and then so as you're running, you're wanting to move up, man. When is Elvis going to get out of here and go freelance? But in comes from Larrabee Recording Studios, another successful engineer producer named Cameron Webb. And
Mm-hmm.
Cameron did like some of the Lemmy stuff, to rather obviously the Motorhead stuff in the very latter years. And he told me, and so they hired him, and it's just like, shit, man, it's kind of that part of the entertainment biz where it's just like, look, I'm here. Why don't you just like show me what to do, help me get up quicker, and then um, they don't really push you. It's either you're brain made and bred for this, or you're not. And I say that also because yeah, you worked easily 60 to 80, 90 hours. There was one week in Larrabee where I worked, and Sunday was off 105 hours. Right, I was working like 16, 17-hour days. It gets crazy. Your brain gets, your ears would get fried. I mean, but that's an assistant engineer slash runner, both doing both,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the staffing needs at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And oh man, so um, eventually NRG for me didn't pan out so well, and I went to Larrabee on Cameron's suggestion, and got a job there as a runner for about another handful of months, and then got up to assistant engineering pretty quick, because I was at NRG for like 13 months. And uh I mean, my first engineering session was at the original sort of West Hollywood and corner of Santa Monica and Larrabee Studios. It was a hip hop act, and they
Mm-hmm.
bust out a pistol and go, "We're gonna do a skit called Russian Roulette." And they go into the live room around there like a U80 whatever, U47, U67, and on me and do the skit. I'm just like behind the concert. I mean, at one point they left for some like award show, came back with a fleet of people, man. They just smoked out the studio, and the firemen came out because the alarm was just going crazy. We gotta come back here again. We're bringing the police. It's 1999 or 2000 at the most. Fun time, stuff like that at the studio. And I go in there and he's like, no, man, he's just saying that. Light me one up. Come on. It's just like, wow. So it was different than NRG. The only hip hop artist that came to NRG, believe it or not, at one time was Ice Cube. He was doing mixing there. And Jay Bognar had some great rooms there, man. That Moroccan room, if you look that up, the Studio B, the original studio, here's a funny thing, was Studio A. Back in the 80s, it was called Weddington Studios. And a good friend of mine who I worked with starting in 1993, let me just backtrack really quick, at a audio tape duplication place. He had worked there in the 80s. He had gone to Sound Lab recording school, which was in North Hollywood as well. In the early, like in 81. He was from Vegas originally. And really quick, another thing that really turned me on to obviously Van Halen was, up until the late 80s or early 90s, I'd never seen a David Lee Roth show. Okay. And there was a guy working the shipping at this Abbey Tape Duplicators place who is the current bass player, I believe, of Body Count, Ice-T. And his name is Vince Dennis. And I think he goes by Vincent Price right now or something like that, or Vince Price. Anyway, he had a plethora of like stuff, at home. He would make, and so we did audio tape duplicating there, and we did videotape duplicating as well. There's that department as well. And so we'd make some copies. And one day, a few months after I started, he brought Us Festival 1983. Video. Holy moly. Watched that whole show. I mean, I was knocked out by, obviously just he's just doing Bo Jackson, leaps off the amps, like
holy crap. I can't believe he's still, even able to walk. Eddie had his hips replaced, at least one of them replaced.
Yeah.
I mean, that was from sliding around on the stage, and I guess, not being in great health, that didn't help that any, but yeah, just the wear and tear in general. Those guys were so athletic back then.
And how much they toured.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean,
imagine.
It's like, it's like, this is like the funny thing. Like, I was talking to somebody last week about baseball players and how like Nolan Ryan, nobody will ever beat him because he was just so active. He worked so much. He was on the mound so much. You don't see that at all anymore, right? Nobody ever goes out there for more than 2 innings or whatever. And these guys back in the 80s, man, they just were killing like, 300 shows a year on average. They were working almost every,
wow.
They were working the whole year all the time. And
day show, night show.
All kinds of stuff. It's incredible that the voices lasted and the way that they partied.
Oh yeah. Well, when you look at some of these tour itineraries, and for whatever reason you see it's like scratched out. Like what happened? So obviously I'm sure.
Yeah, it gets pretty crazy.
But that show knocked me out. Dave really knocked me out in that U.S. festival. I mean, the guy squirting him, and what he said to the guy was just like,
yeah, Roth
doesn't get any more rock and roll than that, man.
That guy is he's an enigma the way that sometimes I'm like irritated with things he does, and other times I'm like, this guy is just the most unique.
I mean, Sammy recently said on the Steve-O show how just bloody entertained he is by the guy. Of course, yeah. And I'll tell you what, really quick, before I get into the following week when Van Halen came out, just to say, just go on record, man. I mean, if you were to ask me, Jeff, like, what's the pound for pound best Van Halen song? I mean, I would have to still always go with "I'm the One." Ripping intro, big ass solo before the vocal comes in, another solo, the vocal breakdown. I mean, it's got that Hot for Teacher-ish. If you're asking me favorite tone, I would say 84, 82. That tone has just got something clean and not overly gained.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Just obviously the Panamas, things ring out. And how did he get that? Why did he turn down the Veritech a couple, knobs or numbers in that day? I don't know, man. Like whatever it is, it's amazing.
Everybody says it's his hands. Everybody talks about how so much of it was his hands.
Yeah.
How you play anybody's rig and sound like himself, and it's pretty cool when you hear those interviews that like Josh Obrek and some of these people have where he's playing in them that are being released, in the last few weeks, that you hear him playing pretty much acoustically on electric, and you hear how much attack he has in his hand.
Oh, such a strong. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like
Man.
you said, he shook your hand at pretty
Sure.
strong grip. Yeah, I remember that too about his hand when he gripped my hand. I was like, yeah, you had a good strong hand. And they were very dexterous from their obviously from the piano, from the
Right.
Scratching. That's a
Sure.
whole different animal.
Oh yeah.
But you had another story about.
So like the next week, they're back there in Studio 3, the one on the very back right side of Record Plant, and if what can I say? They're remixing a song, I guess, or I don't know if there was a B-side or what, but they're in there for like 4 days. Some days for hours. When I was there at night, they would be in there till late. You'd come out, go to the restroom. Was mopping up one time. He goes, "Yeah, I hope I don't trip, man. I'll have to sue you. You'll get nothing." Big laugh. Just puts you at ease. Remember another time I was probably racking up the balls on the pool table, and he goes, "Hey, you play? I bet you I can beat you." Stuff like that. That's just like, not many other big names like him would do that. There was a few times, like the STP guys were hilarious. The brothers, Scott, they were pretty big by then. Whatever. It's all good. It was fun times. I got out of it. A few later, a couple of years later, at the Record Plant thing, but there was Eddie, man, just melting, just couldn't believe it. And like I saw Gary Sharon at the Starbucks a few months after that in Studio City, just hanging out. Just he was with a friend, and just small town, small. It seems freaking big, but in a musician's world, it's kind of small, which was kind of nice even then. So being in the whole grip of things, and he couldn't have been more gracious. That guy, man.
But what's amazing about LA, and like you said, it seems like a giant place where you'd never run into anybody, but it's not like that. It's a strange.
They're there. Yeah, they got a hat on or something,
You know what it is. You once you are in the circles of people that are in the business,
yeah,
if you're around long enough, you're gonna run into all of them, and you're gonna run into all of them. I have a couple guys out there right now, Austin Hanks, and he's the guy that tours with Billy Gibbons as his opening act, and his little side. Billy has a little side thing. Austin's from my hometown in Birmingham, and then Eric Dover, who was in Jellyfish, he's out there. He came out there a long time ago, and he's been played with Slash. He was in Slash's Snake Pit. Played at that. He was the singer at that backyard party that Eddie had.
Oh yeah, with Brian Tichy.
Yeah, so that was there. He was the singer that night. So it's so weird though that these guys I grew up with, we all worship Van Halen, or in his backyard. Such a weird thing, and I'm like, dude, what the heck? I get over and see that on the internet, and I'm like, how? I mean, I just open the video up, and I'm like, that is the guy I grew up with. What in the hell is he
That's crazy, man.
Like he was on Eric was in the Brady Bunch movie, and I just was watching the Brady Bunch movie, and I'm like, what the how did you get on that?
From where is this from? What city?
He's from Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, okay, I mean, right,
Yeah, so it's such a weird thing that these guys there's just a few of them that ended up in LA, but they have interfaced with all of these people, including Eddie, and it's such a weird thing, but they all say the same thing about Eddie. I think the general consensus is that he had that thing that I think because he was an immigrant and he came with nothing, he had nothing for so long, that he doesn't, and he never really. I mean, he has 5150 and a giant house and a bunch of Lamborghinis. But
well, that's the thing I was gonna say is that every day he came to the studio, he brought a different car. That was so awesome. And I think the last time I saw him was it was, you know, I was going out for a run and I think he was taking off. And in one of the other rooms was the, I guess, hip hop artist who's since passed, called what was his name? Heavy D.
Hmm.
You remember Heavy D?
I remember that, man.
Okay, so him and his crew were exiting the studio at the same time, or they were coming in or something like that. And I was going out for a run. Probably said, "Hey, goodbye," whatever. And there he was getting flanked. This guy plays solo on Beat It, man. They all took a picture with him. I stood there, just watched it. And I've looked that picture up. I'll see if it was online anywhere. But they were up in arms about Eddie Van Halen.
Isn't that cool though?
You know,
That's what
I mean, you know, when you watch the interview of what is he on, like Larry King or something, you know, explaining how he.
LL Cool J.
Uh, well, I don't know who else was on Big. Was it
Oh, yeah, that was a different one.
Larry King? But he's just playing, you know, who's going to listen to this kid's album? Like, we had a thing in the band that we wouldn't do it. It's just 20 minutes of my time. Wow. To pull something like that off in an hour, even, it's just.
Yeah, well, I've heard it was only 30 minutes from Andy Brower, through Andy Brower, who was there apparently, that he was rented the amp from a guy named Greg Leon, who was on here.
Yeah.
Greg, you know, told me that he rented the amp for Beat It, and I was like, we've been trying to research what happened, really happened, where it happened, and the timing of that, and it's getting much closer to get down to where it was, what studio it was in.
Do you know? Can you reveal what kind of amp it was, or it wasn't his usual?
Yeah, it was a Marshall Super Bass.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it was Greg's. It was I think a '68 Super Bass, and Eddie's gear. When they said that about, we actually, they were on a break, on a tour break. So what happened was his gear was off on the tour bus, or in the trailers, in a hold, for a couple weeks. That's what the schedule bears out based upon what we know. So he didn't have gear because it was out on the road. And I don't, you would think the Magic Marshall would have been at home, but maybe not. Because I've heard it was out all the way out into 95 was on the road. And people saw it in 95 on the road.
Wow.
So even when he had the PBs, it was back in a rack back there.
Didn't fit the look anymore. Torn Turlex wasn't. Torn jeans were the thing, but not torn Turlex. Anyway, yeah, amazing tone. Eddie Van Halen, man, what a guy! What a guy! He was so gracious.
Yeah, it's crazy that, like I said this in a post yesterday or day before on my Facebook, that what people don't remember about Van Halen was that this band was the biggest band on planet Earth at one point. And there was a time when Mick Jagger looked up to David Lee Roth, or maybe he didn't look up to him, but he respected that he was the top dog at that point. And there was a point, when Jagger was kind of not sabotaging them, but wasn't helping them out when they opened for them. And everybody knew felt the fire of Van Halen. Everybody that was anybody in the music business, I don't care if you were hip hop or who you were, you knew about this band and how powerful they were.
Yeah, I mean, and how melodic they were too.
Write their songs.
Right. Not only, see, if you were to ask me what is the most underrated song,
okay,
to me, it's because there's no backing vocals. Dave carries the whole thing beautifully. Eddie on the 12 string, with the beautiful tone. So Secrets off the Diver Down album.
Yeah, great song.
I mean, that the fact that that's not on smooth radio, almost as a crossover kind of, it's,
sure,
along with the Christopher Cross kind of vibe or something. It's kind of surprising to me. It's the most amazing song, without Michael Anthony back there,
it's weird
doing and awing, and it's just
weird that it didn't hit. Of course they released Pretty Woman, that was big for that album, and then you had Where Have All the Good Times Gone, but yeah, you had Full Bug and you had Secrets and you had some amazing stuff.
Hang 'em High, yeah. Oh man,
just kind of got left behind somehow.
Yeah,
and then 85 happened, and our world shattered with David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
It's just sure. I just seen him in '84, so I got to see him in the early, at the end of that run. But that's why I always gravitate back to '81 because I feel like they already had a lot of issues going on in '84, and I felt like '81 was kind of when they were hitting that where they had everybody was still on the same team and they were still really clicking.
So I finally just maybe to end or whatever, but I finally when did I see them live? So I finally in high school they came around. I almost got to the Monsters of Rock. My buddy who I was in a band with in high school, who bought the bass from that story, from the Sears Outlet store. Uh, uh, I think he apparently went to Monsters of Rock with a neighbor neighbor had an older brother who had a Mustang, and they drove down there, and it was the infamous show where Metallica fans went crazy. But Van Halen was the headliner.
Is this
So I
LA Coliseum?
July 27th or something, 88.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, my mom shipped me off to a friend's house and I stayed there in Santa Monica or Venice Beach for a week. Fine, we went to the beach and hung out. It was dead of summer. But I remember at that week going, my buddy's he's at the Monsters of Rock. He said he was going to go. So eventually, my first concert was later, year and a couple of months later. After that, saw Metallica Justice for All tour. But let's fast forward to high school. Two big shows are happening in the spring of '92. March 26, '92 at Long Beach was going to be Ozzy, 10th year anniversary of Randy's death, and proceeds from the show were going to go towards his new tomb, mausoleum, whatever you want to call it, right? And so Ozzy has to cancel because he has throat issues. And they go 2 days later on a Saturday, the 28th, down in Irvine Meadows. Now, the first whatever hundreds or thousands of people who get there in line will have first pick of where they want to sit. If they want to sit in the grass, fine. If they want to sit towards the front, okay. It was like, okay, so get down there quick. So, there's a lot of saucing going on by the time the show starts. Towards the end of the set, they're about to start paranoid. I use some help out singing this. People took it literally, rushed the stage, and me and my buddy got up on stage, and we didn't take anything, but big deal. And then a month later or 2 months later, it was gonna be Van Halen at the Forum, and the LA riots happened.
Oh yeah, I remember.
So they had to, they postponed that for a couple of weeks, and man, that was that and the Scorpions the year before at the Forum were two of the loudest crowds I've ever experienced, especially between the end of first set and the encore starting. Holy crap. And it was so loud that I was like, oh my God, I didn't know it can get louder. It was pitch black. And if you're looking at the stage this way with Sammy looking this way, we were literally up here, seeing Eddie's back left shoulder he lights up a cigarette in the pitch black and everyone goes nuts. They see the lighter go up and deafening. It was just unreal. And yeah, even Sammy, if you look at Live Without a Net, I get winded just watching that video still. I can watch it on YouTube. Unbelievable acrobats, athletics on the stage. Just, yeah.
Sammy's still going, man.
Yeah, man, 75 years old. How about that news with Van Halen opening up the old live stuff? And
yeah, it's great. I mean, right here, right now, vinyl release. That's a killer, addition.
4 albums.
Sounds like we're gonna have more coming. I mean, that's what they say, so we'll see. Because they are about retrospective anything. It's been like I don't know. It's always been trouble. I don't know whether it's just that they can't agree on what and where, but that's kind of one of the things that came out in one of the interviews that I did. They were going to release some bootlegs that were out there that they were going to actually release as a real release.
Wow.
And one of the guys I had on was part of that. And
yeah,
they couldn't make it happen. And I think it had to do with the Roth and the brothers and coming together on anything. I mean, I think it's, they just, if one said one, the other said the other, and it just like that, I think. So,
yes. Speaking of Roth, at least I got to see the 2012 July or so at the Staples Center. Mm-hmm. Great with Wolf on bass. And Wolf, what a monster musician, man. The drum sounds on that first single off the new album coming. Holy shit! Wow.
Well, that's Elvis, right? Elvis is the Neve master.
It's all three. It's all three of them. It's Wolf, it's Elvis, and it's 5150.
It is, man. The sounds I knew when I saw that Neve go in his studio. I thought, yeah, you want some
Yeah,
drum sounds, bro. He's a big fan of
yeah.
Grohl, of course, and he got that Neve, of course, we know in the documentary, and there's a sound to that, and
Oh yeah,
it's
yeah,
proving
yeah.
his record. It's a great
Yeah,
sound.
the guy knew what he was doing. Rupert
Oh,
Neve.
exactly,
Yeah.
man. Well, I appreciate you hanging out with me, man.
Thanks,
Talking
Jeff.
about your experiences with the
Yeah,
band. That's pretty cool that he's so cool to you and down to earth.
yeah. He was lovely to be around, given the without getting cheesy, man. The godlike guitar, status, man. Forget guitar. This is a musician,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right, in general, yeah.
right? Just a monster musician, man.
Yeah, but
You
that's
know.
the thing is he always said that, and says it in these interviews, man. He's like, the kids call me a rock star, but I don't even know what that is. I don't even, you know, I'm a musician. That's what I always wanted to be. So
Yeah,
he always, I think he just always had it in his head that that's not something that he cared about, and that he never separated himself from other people. I mean, I know that in the world that he was in, how much attention he got when he went out, and all that, and how overwhelming that probably was at times for him. But generally,
yeah.
like it seems like if he meets you like just randomly, he made the gesture to you. You know, I mean,
Like it's like I'll say it again, man. I'll take it to my grave as like one of the greatest moments of my life.
Don Henley do that? Did Don Henley do that for you? I don't. I doubt it.
Eddie Van Halen went out to shake my hand before I did. That's
Right?
crazy, man. So yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, absolutely. Go Van Halen. Hopefully, the new stuff coming out will be abundant and
Yeah,
turn on many more generations to come. Right?
that's right, man. And hopefully forever. That's why I'm doing this, to kind of document and leave behind something that people can. I mean, we're in an age where we can do this, so why not?
I'm there with you, my man. Thanks.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. Have a good one, man.
Have a good one. Take care.
Okay, thanks, man. Bye bye.